While I was working on my next video essay, Nintendo released their winter magazine, which included an interview with Deep Cut. This interview consisted of how they met and the creation of the Anarchy Rainbow song, which is not as good as Till Death Do Us Part. Now this interview makes their backstory sound like such a downer. Many people think we're going to get more backstory from them in the DLC. The thing about that is that if we're going from the Octo expansion rules, Return of the Mammalians and that DLC are going to happen simultaneously. That means Deep Cut is going to be too busy banditing to stop by for a chat. After doing a bit of research, I think Nintendo has given us all the evidence we need to form Deep Cut's backstory. And that's exactly what I did. Before we get to their backstory, let me give a quick summary of the other idol group's backstories. The Squid Sisters, cousins who are the granddaughters of Captain Cuttlefish, a general from the Great Turf War. They performed together as very young children, giving them their original boost of popularity, which continued to grow with them as they got older. And then we have the most complicated backstory, Off the Hook. Oh boy. Pearl wanted to start a punk rock solo career, but it wasn't very successful. Meanwhile, Marina was an Octarian soldier in DJ Octavio's Wasabi unit. Then she heard the Calamari Incantation, performed by the Squid Sisters, and left the Octarians to find the circus, where she met Pearl. Pearl taught Marina basically everything about circus life, and they started a successful band, eventually leading to their popularity. And that's just their backstory. And now we move on to Deep Cut's backstory, or at least how it was presented in this magazine. Last time I did summaries like this, a lot of people said I used heavy bias, so I'll try not to this time. Shiver and Fry met around middle school and became friends. They were both interested in singing, with Fry also taking dance lessons, but neither of them had any experience with instruments. Because of this, they reached out to Big Man, who also went to their school, because they knew he could play piano. The interview then skips a bit forward with Big Man and Fry writing Anarchy Rainbow, which gave them their first boost of popularity. For now, I'm going to set aside Off the Hook's backstory because I think we can all agree that it's the best backstory of all the idol groups. Wait, what's that? Bias? The Squid Sisters' backstory also isn't very complex, however, I believe the integration into the game saves it. First off, all the information needed to understand their backstory is present in the games through the dialogue and sunken scrolls. It also isn't very hard to understand. I also think that keeping the Squid Sisters' relationship to Captain Cuttlefish as a secret until the end of the game is a fun twist. Deep Cut's backstory is exclusively told through this magazine. The only scroll that has anything to do with Deep Cut is Scroll 9, which doesn't give us any new information. It just says, they're a band alright. No way. There are some markings that seem to be rather important, but I don't know what they mean. There are 3 other sunken scrolls that heavily imply association with Deep Cut, although it isn't confirmed. The only one that's connected to an actual character is Big Man's, which is the least interesting. It's quite literally just his morning routine. The most information we get is from Fry's. This scroll describes the secret dances of the Onaga clan and moray eel manipulation. This is quite interesting, as it implies that Fry's eels aren't following her willingly and are instead being manipulated. Still not exactly a backstory though. However, the scroll describes the attacks used in Fry's boss fight, heavily implying that Fry is a member of the Onaga clan. What's the Onaga clan? I have no idea. The thing that all these scrolls have in common is that they all contain a family tree, presumably belonging to the members of Deep Cut. Assuming that the members of Deep Cut are all the youngest in their families, this implies that each member has 2 siblings. Fry and Big Man's family trees are rather small, but then we get to Shiver's, and holy moly, that's a lot. While doing research, I noticed something different about this tree. 2 names are circled instead of just 1. The one towards the bottom is probably Shiver, since she doesn't have any children and looks rather young. The one at the top is probably the figure portrayed in the drawing, which would be Shiver's great-grandmother. As you can see, there's sharks depicted in this scroll with the figure, meaning that having a shark is probably a tradition passed down through generations, just like Fry's eels. This tells us that Shiver is probably also in some sort of tribe, or perhaps a dynasty. However, for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna stick with tribe. Big Man might also be in one of these kinds of groups, or he could be in a normal family. Although, seeing how rare manta rays seem to be in the universe, I'll also say that it's a tribe type deal. Hey guys, it's me, Editor Owen, and just like every other editor out there, I am terminally ill. I was looking back at the interview, and I completely forgot about the first question they ask. Didn't your family used to know each other? So yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all in tribes. Hey guys, Editor Owen again, 2 layers deep. I just edited Editor Owen explaining something that normal Owen left out. And yes, I am still terminally ill. I just realized that I didn't give the reason why that meant they were all in tribes. Trust me, it will make sense by the end. If it doesn't, complain about it in the comments. I've basically talked about everything these scrolls go through, but there's one more that I want to cover, Scroll 2. This scroll explains an ancient event where the land was flooded. This isn't one of the floods that helped wipe out humanity, as we can see an inkling in the scroll, which didn't develop until thousands of years after humanity died. We can also see the Eiffel Tower in the scroll, which implies that the flood is what flipped it. The scroll then says that 3 lights united to consume the disaster, and then the Inklings all threw a party with 3 portable shrines as a tribute. At first this seems like a half-witted way to explain Small Fry's transformation at the end of the game, but if you take another look at these 3 lights, you can see 3 symbols. These symbols each correspond with a member of Deep Cut, or more accurately, their tribes. We can tell that this symbol is Big Man, as it clearly resembles a manta ray, but the other 2 are a bit trickier to tell. However, after even more extensive research, I figured out who these symbols belong to, and it took some work because they are very well hidden in a place that no sane person would ever check. Okay, it's not actually in the news, but you can see it in Deep Cut Studio. Let's get a zoom in on these banners over here. As you can see, they each contain one of the symbols, and if they're color-coded, that means this one belongs to Shiver and this one belongs to Fry. If you need more proof, we can see Shiver's symbol on her fan and Fry's symbol on her octo stamp. This leads us to the age-old question, which came first, the tribe or the lights? Did the tribes create the lights, or did the tribe simply worship the lights after they were saved by them? Let's go back to the final battle of Splatoon 3. When Small Fry turns into Huge Fry, Shiver and Fry say that these 3 lights are empowering him. However, comparing those streams of light to the ones in the scrolls, they look drastically different. The lights in the scroll are apart from each other, each being their own thing. However, in the final fight, all the lights unite into one. Let's take one more look at Scroll 2. We can see a sketch at the bottom left corner of the scroll. It shows the symbols in the 3 lights right next to Deep Cut's logo, with a double-headed arrow connecting them. This shows us that they're the same thing. Deep Cut's logo represents all 3 lights combined. And going back to the final fight, guess who starts singing when Small Fry begins transforming? Deep Cut. The tribes must be together, united, to create the light, and Deep Cut is a representation of all the tribes, saving the world, united. Didn't mean to turn that into a full-fledged video essay.